is by Neekon Vafa, who's going to tell us something that we really want to know: how to become a millionaire by cheating.
Thanks so much, Russell. So as you said, my name is Neekon, and I'm going to be talking about how to cheat at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and maybe along the way show non-hardness of GapMCSP. And this is joint work with Eric Allender on Eric Allender's Day, and also Rahul Alango. Okay, so what is this talk? What am I even going to talk about? I just want to get this across from the beginning. I do not support cheating, despite the title. My goal here is not to encourage or teach you how to cheat, but rather to talk about a hopefully fun toy problem from the Dimax RU under Eric Allender's mentorship with Rahul Alango a few summers ago.
I think like half the audience does well.
Sorry, maybe tomorrow see talks for how to become a millionaire. But yeah, and I'll briefly mention how it relates to showing non-hardness of a gap MKTP under restricted types of reductions. Okay, so just a quick show of hands. So who here wants to become a millionaire? Okay, fantastic. Great. So the good news for you is that there's, sure.
The reason why everybody in California wants to be a millionaire, you're either a millionaire or you're a renter.
There you go. Exactly. So maybe the good news is maybe you find yourself on the show. There's this game show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they ask you a bunch of trivia questions. And if you get, essentially all of them right, you get some chance to earn $1 million, which is fantastic. And as you said, you want to become a millionaire. So imagine you're the person in this game show. The bad news is that you haven't prepared at all for this game show, which, oh well. But the good news is that you have some really good friends, and these friends are willing to prepare on your behalf to some degree. So what do I mean? So here's some form of preparation. Let's assume that all of the trivia questions that are going to get asked in this game show come from some master book of questions and answers that has like P pages total, from some big book, some master book that has P pages. And if you want to think super concretely, think of P as being, let's say, 1,000. You have N friends, good for you. And let's say, for concreteness, let's say N is 50. And your friends are helpful, but they're only boundedly helpful. They're only going to help you learn. They're only going to help you by each reading R pages out of this, this book. So learning the questions and the answers on R out of P pages. And let's say 200 to be concrete. And so maybe you're already worried that 50 times 200 is already bigger than 1,000. So what's going on? But there's some rules to the cheating. What are the rules to this cheating? So yeah, friends can each memorize answers of R pages ahead of time. For every question, you can poll all of your friends. But, and this is crucial, you and your friends do not know which page the question is from. And your friends are only going to have a correctness guarantee if they've happened to read the page that the question is on. And otherwise, they have no correctness guarantee. They could answer correctly, incorrectly. There's no guarantee.
With probability or?
No, just arbitrary. We're still, yeah, adversarial if you want. Okay, so how can you and your friends strategize to always win?
So just to be sure, we don't know the density of the pages per friend. Not the 200. If I give you an arbitrary page, how many friends of your?
I mean, you can. So I guess the question is how to strategize. Like maybe you tell certain friends to read certain subsets and all.
Okay, so sorry.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll make it a little bit more clear what I'm talking about.
If you say your friends don't know what page it's from, they'll know if it's one of their pages, right?
No, they don't know if
I've
it's
seen it.
But they've read so many pages that they just, if they've happened to have read it,
Yeah.
they will say the correct answer. But otherwise, they could behave arbitrarily, and even they don't know.
They don't know how they'll answer. They don't have control over what they answer.
No, they have control over what they answer, but imagine they've read so many pages, they're so tired they only just know the correct answer. Like they know, like for the questions that they've read, they know the correct answers. For everything else, they think they know the correct answer.
Another motivation that.
Yeah, yeah. I
explains
mean,
the-
sure.
So can we go again to the second group? The second group, just understand. I am one of the friends.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
I read the 200 pages.
Mhm.
If I met a question in these 200 pages, I will answer correctly.
That's right.
But I don't know in which of the pages of 1,000 this question belongs.
Exactly.
Maybe another way of saying it is your friends read all the pages, but they only understood 200 of them.
Sure.
They thought they understood it all.
Fantastic. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to that. Yeah, you can we can selectively choose which friends are good at remembering which pages.
And I know which friends that I wrote.
Exactly. So you know which friends have read which pages, and you can all agree on something beforehand. Okay, so yeah, let me get a picture. Hopefully, it's a little bit more clear. So you have n friends. They each read some subset of pages S sub I, and the size of each set is a most R. Here are your n friends. They're characterized by the set of pages they read. Let's say there's some trivia question, Q, that pops up. It's on some page, I'll just call it page of Q, somewhere from page 1 through P. The question is going to be fed to you and all of your friends. These friends, in this process of reading the pages, have effectively learned functions f sub I. So we'll say your ith friend has learned a function f sub I that takes in a question and outputs. In the case if he wants to be a millionaire, it's a multiple choice game with A, B, C, or D. So they put out some letter. And I just want to emphasize, these functions, the only guarantee these functions have is that they're correct when the corresponding page of the question is something that the ith friend has read. These answers get fed to you, and then you somehow have to combine all of these answers from your friends to output some final multiple choice answer.
Which one answered what?
Which friend is giving which answer. That's right.
But you don't know which page the question is.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't know, not your friends.
Neither of you know. Yeah,
Okay.
neither of you know. Because if your friends did know, then they could just correct their answer, say I don't know, or give the right answer, and that's not the model we're in here. And any more questions? I'm happy to clarify the model if it is a bit confusing, I admit.
So the ones that don't know it, somehow they know that they don't know, like they're faking?
No. I mean, you could think of it that way, but if they're honest friends, yeah, I mean, depending on how you want to think of it, but there's no guarantee that, or they don't know that they're giving the wrong answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a question. I give the question to all of my friends.
That's right.
Okay. Do I know in which page is the question, yes or no?
Say it again.
For me, now I'm playing the game. I am a player.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do I know in which page is the question?
No.
Excellent. But so if I don't know anything, I don't know actually which of them really know.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand why the player should not remember the pages, but
It's maybe too much information for them
Yeah.
to know in some sense. And yeah, I'll mention the application later on. Hopefully,
oh,
it makes
Like
sense,
a
but-
general principle of people, when you're bad at something, you're also bad at knowing when you're bad at it.
Yes. Okay, so what's the goal? The goal here formally is to construct some set family corresponding to which pages your first friend reads, which pages your second friend reads, and so on. And they're bounded by each size R, and some way to combine all of these answers. So that if you combine the answer from your first friend, the answer from your second friend, the answer from your third friend, all the way on, that you're always going to get the correct answer for any possible question. All right, and just to make it a little bit more mathematically formal, let's give some bound on the parameters. And let me try to justify this a little bit. So if n, the number of your friends, is less than p over r, then there's no hope of you winning this game at all, because your friends can't even cover all of the pages, even if they're disjoint. So certainly n needs to be at least p over r. And just to give it a little bit of slackness, let's say n is at most a polynomial in p over r. So our goal, so yeah, this is the goal. And maybe you want to think about it for a bit, but
I suppose the only thing you can figure out is who is consistent.
yes, perfect. Great.
Do you get to ask multiple questions before you combine, or do you just have to do this once
Per question. Yeah, one question at a time. For every question. Yeah, so
Excel, right? Or whatever. So you don't have control over the question.
yeah, there's no control over questions. It's just the person's asking you a question, you get to ask your friends. And you better have the right answer after consulting with all of your friends. Let me move on. Or sorry, yeah.
Okay. After saying all that story, all the discussion is about the covering argument. Is that yes or no? I'm trying to construct a covering argument over steps. Yes or no? I want just to know what is the mathematical.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what a covering argument is, but maybe the answer might be yes to that. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Let me give the. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, just a clarification question. So if I understand the question correctly, the number of questions per page is not really important.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Might as well just be one question per page.
Sure.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's but you don't know, but like the reason I'm not equating them is because you should not be able to go from the question to the page.
No, that's
easily.
fine. But
Yeah.
Combine is oblivious over the questions, yes or no?
Yes. Combine is fixed ahead of time. So you and your friends strategize to agree on these sets S sub I and this combine algorithm.
So what you can do is like for each page, for each possible page, you can look at the set of friends, kind of the dual TI
Yes.
that are, and see which sets T are monochromatic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you want to make sure that all the monochromatic sets have to kind of agree.
Yeah. So yeah, you're both right on the money here. Let me just give the construction. So what we're going to do is we're going to split up these pages 1 through P into what I'll call chapters. I'm calling it chapters just for the book analogy. It's really just break it up into blocks, so that each block has R over 2 pages in it. Maybe this parameter choice of R over 2 is a bit suggestive of what we're going to do next. So what we're going to do is for each pair of chapters, we're going to assign one friend to read that pair. So that is, I can define sets S sub ij or S sub ji to be the union of the ith and the jth chapters. And for, we can label friends by pairs of coordinates, why not? For the ijth friend, we're going to have them read S sub ij. So the first friend or the I2, the 1-2 friend is going to read the first and second chapters. The next one's going to read the first and third chapters and all the way on. And as long as the number of friends you have is more than 2p over r, choose 2, which is a polynomial in p over r, then you're going to have enough friends to be able to at least read all of these pairs of chapters. So this describes the set family, but I haven't told you yet how the combine algorithm works.
You're just going to look for like a column and a row.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So what we're going to do is, we have to come up with this combine algorithm. You're going to look at, all rows or all columns, depending how you see it, iterate over all these chapters, and look at this list of answers from, for chapter I. You're going to look at the responses from all of your friends who've read the ith chapter. You're going to look at this list, and you're going to ask, are all of these answers the same? Is it a consistent list? And if it is, output that unanimous answer. So that's the full description of the algorithm, but let me analyze to make sure this is even well-defined. So the analysis here is that, okay, let's say there's some question. Its page has to lie on some chapter. Let's just say it's the ith chapter. So I is now fixed to be the right chapter. For every other chapter, or for every chapter J, we know that the qth page is going to be in particular, it's going to be the union of the ith and jth chapter. Why not? So if you look at this list, all of these friends have read the ith chapter, so all of the answers are going to be correct. So every single element in this list is going to be correct. So in particular, it's consistent. And it's consistent, and you're going to output the answer, it's going to be correct. And just to make sure we're not we're not going too quickly, if there's some other list that happens to be consistent for some other j, then if it is consistent, it will also be all correct, because one of the elements in this list was the friend who read both I and j. And so because the ijth response is going to be correct and the whole thing is consistent, you're going to output the right answer coincidentally. Yes, that's the full description of how this works. Let me move to meta complexity land a little bit. As a corollary, if you have a promise problem pi, that's going to have a NC0 many-one reduction to GapMKTP, let's say, with some super constant multiplicative factor, then the zero certificate complexity of pi, whatever that means, is sublinear. And if you're unfamiliar with these terms, maybe this will be a little bit more clear. In particular, we can show that parity has no AC0 many-one reduction. So now we're talking about AC0 reductions, not NC0 reductions, to the same problem. And just another consequence of this is that this omega-1 factor approximation to MKTP is provably unconditionally not NP hard under many-one AC0 reductions. They're non-uniform.
And second, omega-1 is additive or multiplication?
Multiplicative. Yeah, it's gonna be. Okay, so let me give a proof of the second corollary given the first corollary. So I haven't proven the first corollary yet, but let's prove the second one as a consequence. To say that we did have such a reduction for contradiction, then you can apply random restrictions to effectively go from an AC0 reduction to an NC0 reduction. And now you have a reduction from parity or not parity to this MKTP problem. But now we can just resort to our first corollary that says, that would imply that parity would have sublinear zero certificate complexity, but parity has, totally maximal zero certificate complexity. So we get a contradiction. Okay, so now let me talk about this first corollary and sort of how it connects to everything I talked about so far. So let me, because I haven't defined GapMKTP formally and zero certificate complexity, let me just sort of try to get the ingredients across of how this proof works and not the full proof. So, if this weren't true, then we have some NC0 reduction. If we unwind what it means for, what zero certificate complexity means, we're going to get some no instance x of pi. And therefore, if you feed it through the reduction, you're going to have a string of high KT complexity. But you're also going to get many related, and I'm being a little bit vague, but related yes instances. So if you feed it through the reduction, you're going to get some small description for these for the results that are fed through the reduction. And our goal is to get some small description for R of x, which would be a contradiction because we know that R of x has high KT complexity by the correctness of this many-one reduction. What we're going to do at a high level is we're going to think of questions as being indices of this string, of this output string from the reduction, and the corresponding answer to that question as being whatever that index is for input x through the reduction. And roughly speaking, a page, we'll think of that as the corresponding set, corresponding constant size set of input indices you care about for the elf output bit. And this page, makes sense because we're talking about NC0 reductions. So every output bit is going to only depend on a constant number of input bits. And now, the implementations of these, weirdly, helpful or not helpful friends are going to be implemented by these small descriptions d sub k we have from the promise that these y sub k are yes instances. And so they have small descriptions. And if you just churn through exactly our arguments that we gave for the game show, if you use these friends f sub ij with their implementations d sub k, and you use our combine algorithm that we talked about, this unanimity checking, then you're going to get some small description for R of x, which is a contradiction with the fact that R of x we assumed has high KT complexity. Okay, let me finish up by talking about a lot of the reason we're all here. It is Eric Allender's day. So just personally speaking, my interests and many others in this field is really only possible thanks to Eric Allender. And let me just focus on today we've heard many examples of how he's been a leader through the field, but I'm going to talk about a little more of a my personal case. So I attended the DIMAX RU a few years ago with Rahul Alongo, and we looked a little bit different back then, admittedly, than we do now. But yeah, so what is this DIMAX RU? It's a summer research experience for undergraduates, and this takes place at DIMAX at Rutgers University. And I do want to emphasize that this is undergraduates that we're talking about. And Eric has mentored many students over the years on meta complexity projects throughout these summers. And here's a list of all the students that Eric has mentored through these summers, and maybe you recognize a name or two. But yeah, I sort of echoing what Rahul Alongo was saying earlier, like Eric has been extremely generous with his time, especially to undergraduates, and getting them started in meta complexity and getting started on these research projects. And this is the reason I've been interested in the field, and it seems like other people as well from the earlier talks today. So thanks so much for the organizers for letting me talk on this day, and thanks so much, Eric Allender, for everything that you've done.
For Eric, and now we'll do another round for you. I believe there's a reception.
There's a reception outside for Eric's day.
So outside meaning outside the building?
No,
Or just outside
in
the
the foyer.
Okay, great.
Just outside.
Great.
Coffee break.
Coffee break.
So more.
With wine break.
Valentina, is there a picture or?
Yeah, we can do a picture now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So I think it was the whole idea to get Eric Allender and all the, what was the name?
Allenderites?
Allenderites. To have a picture, group picture. So everybody was like, who feels like Allenderite. Get up there, get up here.